Hey, everybody. Apologies for the formal attire. I just was low on jeans and this is what came out. So sorry about that. I should have known. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some of the user experience efforts that we've done at McAfee, and also drawn some models that I've developed over the past on how to understand user experience and what you can take away from it. I definitely want this to be interactive. Want your participation on any slide, any concept, anything I sketch up here. You want to question something or probe on it or push, how would it apply it in a mobile application search environment? That would be great. I'd love to talk about that. At McAfee, we do work on quite a few things. You probably mostly know of us as an antivirus company that annoyingly asks you for money every year. Does that happen to you? Anybody? I'm trying to kill that. That's one of my goals. Is to try to quiet that experience down and make it more useful, and it really makes security a more broadly interesting and useful suite of tools. So, one of the challenges we have is, when you think about security, how do you get it to be more than just anti-malware? Nobody wants to even think about that. It should just be, I should just deal with it, right? Why do we need to? Why do we need to have stuff like that? I want to focus on areas like privacy, giving people control over privacy, giving people the ability to control the kind of content that comes in. Maybe they have kids and they want to do that more effectively at the network level, not just at the device level. I want to help McAfee protect your identity and let you be able to authenticate once and work everywhere. There's all kinds of cool things you can do in security if we can get you past some barriers we have. So I'll talk a little bit about UX as an industry, and then we want to get into, I can say more about McAfee, but I'm not going to spend much about McAfee. This is just a deck I presented elsewhere, and I have a repurpose. I have like 3 decks here that we'll touch on. As you ask me questions, I'll pull up different slides. But the first couple are pretty good, I think, to start with. I'm just going to skip over our vision for a second and say, when I think about design, I think of it differently. I think of it in multiple facets, more than most people do. Most people think of design as, it's a part where you take that ugly looking UI and you make it look good, right? The lipstick on the pig kind of thing. Make it pretty. That is a piece of it, for sure. The aesthetics, the visuals, that's kind of the yellow one, the yellow circle. That's one thing the user sees. In fact, that's the thing that users perceive the fastest. You hit a website, you open up a mobile application, you go to look at the screenshots first, right? Nobody does anything else. They don't interact. They look at the screenshots. You're looking at the app store and going, do I want this thing? No, it's ugly. I don't want it. Right? So that's the first thing, visual. The second aspect of design that's important to know is interaction design. Interaction design is the sequence of machine-human interactions. The machine state is X and the user presses Y, so we're going to show Z. Now, in that case, if the next thing this machine's going to do is go to A, B, and C. That's interaction design. That's a different kind of design. It's more technical, more embedded in the kind of the cognitive science of human interaction. So that's a different type of training you have than visual training. And the voice is the last one. How does it sound? How does it come across? Is it spoken? Do you speak to the user in a way that is consistent, that makes sense, that is in their language? In an enterprise type of application, I know you guys do a lot of B2B, B2B2C. You have a certain kind of voice and a certain tone. In a consumer world, it depends on your brand a lot. Think about something like Groupon. Now, Groupon is really strong on voice. Have you noticed anybody saw Groupon? They spend nobody really. You guys are like non-participators. No. They do a lot on really making it sound kind of cool. Or one of my favorites is Woot.com. Have you ever seen that before? Yeah, they're really good at content. They're really good at coming across in a clever kind of way, in a consistent way. So those are the 3 faces of a design, the things the user sees. But what's behind the scenes in the UX world is these other areas. So user research is something user doesn't really see, but if it's done well, it helps tell us things like, how can we make this better? How are people actually responding to our application? How can we improve the UI? What should we do? What should we build? How do we leapfrog the competition? What do the people really need to get the most out of what we're offering? And then prototyping is a skill that's an important support mechanism. It's the ability to try out the what-ifs with low risk. We all know that making changes in code is more expensive the later you down the line.
So do any of these carry more weight than the others when you're looking at the user experience, when you're looking at, is it interaction, is it visual, is it voice that is more important in the research and what you guys have?
Well, it kind of depends on the brand, but I would say that, I don't want to give an it depends answer, but even though it does, so let me try to give a good answer to that. I think that...
or do you weight one more over the other?
I don't, because it depends on the context that I find. Like if I'm working with a brand, let's say, that has a lot of equity and it's got a certain kind of, then I'm gonna pay a lot of attention to visuals and voice, because you've got to be consistent with the way the brand is. You don't want to be weird. You don't want to have an offshoot from the brand. Then in that case, you kind of need to stick to certain consistencies and guidelines. Where you get more variable when you're a lesser known brand or in a context where like in our case, I think you guys have this situation too. A lot of your deals are with, you're not going directly to the consumer. You are doing partners. So your partner might have a strong sense of like, I want this visual and this voice, and you're kind of like, okay, well, we'll flex to do that. That might be, better or worse for the user, depending on how it comes out, plays out.
Thank you.
Sure. So prototyping is really important to do, especially for those of you since you're coders and engineers, because it helps you find the big, we'll call them user experience bugs, way early in the process before we get into actual production level code. Real important to do, and it allows you to do this user testing and trying out different things and figuring out, hey, what's the best way to go. So these are kind of the what I call the classic functions within the user experience team. Sometimes there's others, like you might have information architects, things like that, offshoots of this. And then now I want to give you my model of a simple model. It's not the only one out there, but a simple model for what user experience really is. And it all starts with meeting a need for the target audience or the customer. And I put that at the very, very core. And I'll try to show why in a moment. But it's in the center. Outside of that is this layer of usability. You guys probably have heard, hey, we should do usability study, we should do this and that. That's the aspect of user experience that has to do with being able to accomplish a task to reach some goal. Like I want to be able to set up my application, first time setup. Okay, that's a task. Can the users do it easily? If you have good usability, they can. If you have a lot of weird, problems in the flow, then they can. Then outside of that is the voice layer, copy content. That's another way of calling it. That's what people see. And then outside of that is the look and feel. And so the reason I like this model as a spatial representation of user experience is that it kind of represents the way people come into and see a product, a site, an application. So they come, as I mentioned before, the first thing they see is the look and feel. Then they start reading about it, looking at it, you can start to read. And then if you decide to try some task or something, you get to the usability layer, you try to accomplish something, and then you'll find out if does it actually meet a need. Now you can have really horrible experience, like really bad look and feel, really bad copy content, really bad usability, but still be successful from a user experience perspective. I wouldn't recommend it, but you can. I used to joke around that eBay was an example of that, right? Back in the day when we worked there in the early 2000s, it was the crappiest and hardest to use, still is, the hardest to use e-commerce site on the planet. It is, but it's still a good user experience in some ways because it meets this underlying need. What need does it meet? It meets that need of, I have a lot of junk in my garage and I want to get rid of it. Or I want to find this treasure that I can't find through any other channels locally. So it meets this need, and if you have the most amazing visuals and great copy and it's very usable experience site, mobile app, whatever it is, but you don't actually meet someone's need, it doesn't matter. It'll all implode in itself, and there is no real good user experience because that has to be the core of everything. So knowing what your target audience's needs are is like central to any good user experience. Once you know that, then you start building on that. Okay, let's make a good flow that's easy to use. Let's make sure the content copy is clear, follows our guidelines, or just at least the same. Or let's use good visual design so we can go from there. That's my model. You guys use personas at all? Everybody use personas? You know what those are? I'll give you a quick intro of what they are. It's a really useful tool. I recommend you actually build them for your there's a piece of user experience that you should definitely try to do. Personas are basically made up people, composite, kind of fictional composites of people. And I like to call them the best UI for insights, for data, information. And the reason they're so good is because I hope you guys would build them together and they would represent the most important things to remember about the person. And the reason why they make a good UI for data is that if you think back to, if you think about how most information or insights is shared among team members, I don't know if anybody's been in other big corporations, but man, you get hit hard with PowerPoint all the time. And that sucks. I mean, it's you just onslaught, like I'm doing to you here, I'm giving you onslaught after onslaught, hopefully not, slide after slide, and you see these bar charts, and you see, believe me, I love data, but the problem is, when you have data like that, it's out of context, or isn't grounded in a story or a meaningful thing, it's hard to remember. Some of you guys are probably pretty good at remembering things, remembering facts and all that, but generally, human beings are not that good at that sort of semantic information, semantic memory recall. People are really good at episodic memory. Episodic memory taps into a much older brain skill. I'm going into my cognitive science days now. If you think about literacy, has only been around how long? Anybody know? Literacy's been around like 25,000 years at best, right? So that's actually quite long. But modern literacy, like widespread literacy, hundreds of years maybe, not even that. PowerPoint's been around since 1985 or something, I don't know. And yet we use that as a medium to convey information. What did we do before that? We told stories. It was through storytelling and the assumption of a persona, of a character, and telling of a story that information that was critical to survival was passed along. So, that's how we are evolved to remember important things. So personas tap into that ability. It's called theory of mind. Check it out on the ability to put yourself into the mind of someone else and remember important things. Yeah.
So why would you make a persona out of a fictional composite instead of actually finding people who use your thing and taking some representative sample of that and directly addressing them?
You can definitely do that. And the challenge with that is that there are too many people to remember. Like, let's say, if I want to do a real comprehensive study of the world of security, like we did a series of studies over the last 2 years to understand how do people think about security. And we literally we went out to 100 people's homes throughout the world, in 4 countries, and then we did a follow-up survey with all this data. I don't know how to represent 100 people, So what we did is we looked at patterns of things within that 100, and we said, there's this cluster of behavior and thought process that's like this, and I'll show you a couple examples. There's a cluster like that, and so we created personas that represented those clusters of thought or behavior, and we told stories around it so we could remember the key things. That was why we did it. It's not everything in the story is an actual person, but they're taken from real people. It's a more convenient way to remember about 85% of the information. If that makes sense. Because it's impossible for us to remember 100% of 100 people. That's just not possible. So, another good thing is this helps you get this kind of coordination. If you guys build personas together, instead of don't have some agency do it and give you it, do it yourselves, and actually, you would do that anyway, right? Do it yourselves, and then you'll find that you're useful in creating, say, I don't know, you guys use Scrum here or Agile? Shop? Okay, so you're writing your user stories, right? Write them in the context of a particular persona. We want this persona to be able to do this particular task. And that lets you automatically go, oh yeah, that person, here's their issue. Their problems are these, their hopes are those, and so on. I'll give you a couple examples of some personas that we did on some overall stuff. All right, I'll give you a couple, just 2 quick ones here, and then I'll move on. So in the world of security, in the world of security, you have people who are experts, the expert agents. These are the guys that, again, the gals too, that know technology inside and out. Many of you are probably like that. You understand and know how operating systems are put together. You know about viruses. You probably got a virus on your machine. You know how to remove it. You probably use a custom set of solutions, maybe a free A/B testing, something here, and you got another product there doing that. That's an expert type of person, and that's about 11% of the population in the U.S. and Canada. Whereas this person over here is Practical Cat, we'll call her that. She's a person who basically installs security software because that's what you do. For years now, she's been shown, You get a PC, you install security. You get a PC, you install security. So that's her mindset. I just do it because it's what you're supposed to do. Not someone who thinks about it, doesn't go off and shop and look at all the other different options out there, doesn't like customization stuff, but just does it, renews when it's, okay, that's about 40-something%. And you have all these other different kinds. Here's one that I love right here, Terry. She's the honey badger. You know what the honey badger is? Honey badger is, this is one we didn't know about. Honey badger is someone who has this mindset that, you know what, I'm going to be all right. But, you know, I'm not really, what do I need to worry about? I don't even go onto that many websites. I'm using an Apple. It doesn't really, you know, I'm not going to get a virus. My phone, something happens to my phone, I'll just buy another one, or I'll just wipe it and reset the factory. They have this mindset, even technically, if they're technical people, they know about security risks. They're just like, I'm 1 in a million, who's going to steal my data? So what? I ate a cheeseburger on, on Saturday on Facebook, big deal. They're not worried about this stuff, they just have this mindset. And that's about, how many people are careful here? Yeah, more or less. So you can kind of see where you fall in. Hold my hand Holly is the one she relies on someone else to give her advice technically on things. You might have a hold my hand Holly in your life. Someone who who asks you to tell you what should I get? What should I buy? I don't know. Tell me. And then the systematic Sam is we like to call her the person who's addicted to media and the conspiracy theories of the world and wants to battle against the hackers and change their password all the time, and they want to do everything that they can to shut out the world and make sure that they have control, kind of a control-oriented person. So just with that, I don't know, 2-minute description, you get a lay of the land for what the security world is like. There's nothing stopping you guys from doing the same with your consumer audience too. It's a very useful tool once it's done. I'm not going to go through all this stuff here. I think what I want to do is, this is more of a story about us. But I will say the approach that we tend to use, and I think that you guys are starting to think about this kind of stuff, is starting off with those user needs, figuring out where you're going to, you know where you're going in terms of a platform, and then doing a lot of iteration on the actual work that you're doing in progress. Sometimes you can't do these highbrow, projects where you figure out your whole strategy, where you're going, what you're going to do in an abstract way. You got to do it in the middle of a project that's due next month, right? So we slip that into. We tend to try to insert these design methodologies, research methodologies into our regular process and get it going. Validate with users. So last thing I want to talk about is this. I'll talk a little bit about. Yeah. You don't care about our UI. You do? Alright. Okay, we'll go back to slide. I feel like I'm rushing here. So one of the things we did was, let's go back here. So our UI was pretty, this is our new UI, user. It started looking like, it was a little more basic than that. It was a lot different. What we had to do with this was, with Windows 8 coming out and all the move to touch on tablets we had to really change the UI. It really was the same for the last I don't know how many years. And we started with a bigger footprint because now for the touch world, you guys already know this, you need to have a target about, depending on the type of resolution you're talking about, but you need about 44 pixels ideally to get a target that a human can actually accurately touch. So a lot of our stuff was built for a teeny tiny target, your mouse would get into, but your finger would be, it's adjacent to another target, you hit the other one, damn, you're constantly going back and forth. So we had to change our UI, and also we wanted to use the chance to air it out a little bit. It was pretty, I'll show you what it looked like before, pretty tight. And so we did this kind of thing, and we created a pattern of design, a visual look and feel, that we started to extend to all of our other areas to try to be consistent. Because we had a mobile app that we acquired from a